When we go out to buy a car, chances are we buy the exact same type of car that thousands of other people already own. Sometimes, to put our own style and personality on that car, we have the vehicle customized to better suit who we are or what we want the vehicle to say about us. Every vehicle you're about to see in this video has been through that process, but the customization and specification have been taken to a whole new level. These are some of the most incredible technical vehicles the world has ever seen. As a police officer in the United States of America, Jeff Block knows a thing or two about driving fast. He's been involved in high-speed chases in his patrol car, and he's got no fear of speed. Perhaps that's why he doesn't get nervous when he gets behind the wheel of his specially adapted plane car. Jeff has the nickname Speedy Cop, and when he's not working, he's pursuing his hobby as an amateur mechanic. His proudest achievement is the Cessna Yoda, an old Cessna 310 plane from 1956 that he's turned into a road-worthy racing car using pieces from an abandoned Toyota minivan. The silver bullet-shaped car looks like a novelty, but it actually won the 24-hour Limousine race in South Carolina in 2013. Jeff has since added brake lights, indicators, and headlights, which have enabled him to get a license to drive it around the streets of his hometown. Understandably, people stop and stare whenever they see it. When you're a millionaire, you have a few decisions to make about what kind of luxury vehicle you want to buy. Should you buy a limousine or a private airplane, for example? Well, why not take a leaf out of the book of this American custom car company and have both at the same time? The striking-looking stretch limousine is made from the chassis of an old Learjet, which has been extensively adapted and modified so it can be driven on the roads. Pieces from various different cars have been used to complete the build, which is based around a high-performance V8 engine. Despite weighing more than 12,000 pounds, the land plane is capable of reaching 100 miles per hour if pushed to full acceleration. There's more to the car than just good looks, too. There's a state-of-the-art sound system inside that would rival any nightclub. The only snag is the price tag. The company who made the car say it cost them $1 million to put it all together, and they would only sell it if they received an offer of 5 times that amount. You've already seen what Jeff Block, also known as Speedy Cop, did to his old Cessna 310 plane. Now, check out what he's done to this 1969 Bell OH-58 Kiowa Vietnam helicopter. Aircraft like this were used in the Vietnam War, but Block and his team have somehow taken this one out of the air and turned it into a vehicle that can run not only on land, but water. Jeff acquired the helicopter in 2016 and spent 6 months working on it to adapt it for its new purposes. A process that started by putting the helicopter body on the chassis of a 1986 Toyota van. A V6 engine from a 2002 Audi Quattro was then introduced to provide power, and then the underside was filled with foam to ensure that the strange vehicle could float. As with Jeff's previous creation, the amphibious helicopter car competed in the 24-hour Le Mans race. It wasn't a winner, but it turned a lot of heads when it turned up on the racing track. There are a few cars that have been advertised as the largest sedan in the world. But for our money, the true owner of that title is the Russian Maz 541. Created at the Minsk automobile plant, only 3 of these behemoths were ever built, with the first unit rolling off the production line in 1956. Their job was a highly specialist one. They were tasked with towing jetliners into position. Different countries employed different solutions to solve the problem, but the Russian answer was to build a huge 2-driver sedan equipped with an engine borrowed from a T-34 Soviet tank. The sedan shape meant that the vehicles could get much closer to the planes than the trucks they replaced, and having 2 drivers meant that the cars didn't need to be turned around to do their work. There was no real reason for the cars to be as aesthetically pleasing as they are. They were made that way so that they appeared even more impressive to tourists and visitors who saw them at work on the tarmac of Russian airports. These days, there's only one way to pull a trailer along a motorway or freeway. You attach it to a powerful truck and drag it along behind you. Back in the 1980s, there was briefly an alternative. You could acquire a Steinwinter Supercargo 2040 cab and get right underneath the trailer and more or less carry the trailer on your back. The innovative vehicles were expected to allow for better speed and maneuverability on the roads with less drag. The whole car was based on the chassis of a Mercedes with a 400 horsepower Daimler-Benz engine fitted along with anti-lock brakes, independent air suspension, and even climate control. When the haulage industry first caught sight of the cars at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 1983, they provoked a lot of excitement. But sadly, the whole project just wasn't to be. Experienced truck drivers complained of handling problems, and the idea was quietly scrapped less than a year after it was unveiled. Looks like a winner to us. Perhaps someone could go back to it and see if they could improve on the design using modern technology. Aside from being a time of awful horror, the Second World War was also a time of great innovation. But not all of those innovations worked out. During the early days of the war, Adolf Hitler wanted a weapon that would make it easier for his forces to break through the concrete fortresses that protected France from the threat of invasion. One of the weapons he tried was the Gustav Gun, which was introduced by metallurgist Gustav Crump in 1941. The gigantic gun was 40 feet tall, 150 feet long, weighed almost 1,400 tons, and was equipped with 10-ton shells that were fired from a 90-foot barrel. Despite its awesome power and size, the weapon turned out to be a liability. It was so big that it was easily seen from the sky by Allied aircraft, and it could only be moved on unique tracks that had to be built in advance. The enemy could always see it coming before it was fired, and it became a target more than an assault weapon. The Germans say it was retired from service in 1942, although some military historians believe it was captured by the Russians and disassembled. For heavy-duty agricultural work, you need a highly adaptable vehicle that won't be troubled or fazed by any terrain it encounters. Many years ago, the Russians thought they had the perfect vehicle for such duties, the Tet 1000 turbo-electric tractor, which they hoped they would be able to put to work in salt marshes. The tractor had both wheels and tracks and could alternate between both to ensure that it never got stuck in the mud. The most striking thing about the design is that the tracks are perpendicular to the wheels. The drive would move forward when driving along the road, and when they needed to use the tracks, they would rotate the cabin 90 degrees and use the tracks to move sideways. If the tracks weren't required, they could be removed, and the driver would be left in charge of a simple but powerful tractor. Only one unit of the Tet 1000 was ever built and was said to perform well during tests. But for unknown reasons, it was never put into full production. Perhaps with a weight of more than 30 tons, it was considered too heavy to be practical. Once upon a time, blimps and zeppelins were every bit as popular as planes and other aircraft when it came to moving people and cargo through the air. A series of high-profile accidents sidelined blimps several decades ago, but now Lockheed Martin is trying to bring them back. This is the LMH-1 airship, a 300-foot-long hybrid airship capable of carrying 21 people and up to 23 tons of cargo at the same time. The high-tech Zeppelin sits on cushions of air that can bind the vehicle to the ground or even the water, which means that it doesn't have to be tied into place when it comes into land. Only the prototype has been built so far by the California-based company. It's scaled down to 120 feet long, and they've given it the catchy name P-791. Although the bulk of the design will be familiar to anyone who's seen a blimp before, the helium-filled hull only provides around 80% of the lift. The rest comes from a motor and wings of the kind you typically only see on a more conventional airplane. Because they don't need an airport to take off or land, Lockheed Martin hopes that the airship will be used by businesses that need to deliver to hard-to-reach locations. The Lockheed Martin airship is a massive vehicle, but when it comes to size, it faces stiff competition from the colossal twin fuselage airplane designed by Stratolaunch Systems, which is thought to be the widest plane in the world. The company is owned by Paul Allen, a billionaire who's best known for co-founding Microsoft with Bill Gates. The 385-foot wide plane has 6 independent fuel tanks, 6 engines, and 8 separate sets of landing gear, all of which have been appropriated from the Boeing 747. Although the passenger capacity would be huge, the plane hasn't been designed for that purpose. Ultimately, Paul hopes that his plane will become the default choice for carrying Pegasus XL rockets into the upper reaches of the atmosphere, where they can launch their payloads into Earth orbit. Given that the aircraft has a total weight capacity of more than 500,000 pounds, it appears to be well equipped for the task. Advanced testing on the airplane began in 2019, so we should soon know if Stratolaunch has been successful in their endeavors. Many trail and rail companies all over the world are still working on creating a commercially viable and reliable Maglev train. But in Shanghai, China, Maglev has been a reality for a long time. The magnetic levitation train that runs between Pudong International Airport and Longyang Railway Station is the oldest Maglev still running today, holds the title of being the fastest electric train in the world, and was the first Maglev to hit a top speed of 268 miles per hour. Despite all of that, however, it still isn't commercially viable. It cost the Chinese government more than $1 billion to create the train and the line it runs on, and there's no expectation that the money made from passengers on the line will pay that debt off for several decades. The Maglev wasn't built to make money. It was built just to demonstrate that such a thing is possible. Having proven their point, the Chinese government is still considering whether to create additional Maglev trains and lines across the country's rail network, thereby enabling super high-speed transport from one end of the vast country to the other. You can find out almost everything you need to know about the zipper ship from its name. It's a ship, and it's been designed to look like the kind of zipper you probably use to fasten up your jeans. The strange design is the work of Japanese artist Yasuhiro Suzuki, who was inspired to create it when he was flying above Tokyo's Sumida River on a plane and looked down to see the boats in the water. In his mind, the ships all look like tiny zippers, so when he was back on the ground, he set to work designing a boat that would look like a zipper for real. Suzuki's zipper is 30 feet long, so when it accelerates across the water, leaving a wake of ripping white water behind it, it looks as if it were unzipping the body of water that separates Musashi and Shimosa. Suzuki only exhibited his work for 2 weeks during December 2018, and it's not known where it is now. That's a shame. Water taxis that looked like this would probably make yet another great tourist attraction in Tokyo. At a time when every car manufacturer in the world seems to be obsessed with creating advanced, reliable electric cars, a team of students in New South Wales, Australia, have their eyes set even further into the future of automobiles. They've designed a fully functional solar car, and it's been licensed and approved for use on the roads in the country. This is SunSwift EVE, and despite being solar-powered, it's no slouch. It has a top speed of 90 miles per hour and can drive 500 miles on a single solar charge. There's a motor fitted to the car, but because it operates at 97% efficiency, it's said to consume less energy than the average household toaster. The massive rack of solar panels on the car's roof and back mean that it's not the most aesthetically pleasing vehicle we've ever seen, but it's probably the most environmentally friendly. So it's an idea worth pursuing. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.